Hello lovely people, it's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. How are you? I hope you're enjoying your January wherever you are. It's a beautiful sunny day today. But yes, I am downstairs in my basement sewing room because that is where I want to be right now. Got to make the most of these days off, you know. So, what am I going to do today? First thing I'm going to show you is a card that I made. It's a birthday card, but of course I made it out of fabric for a friend. I've already taken it to her, but I recorded myself making it, and I've got a couple of finished photos as well. So I'll make sure you get to have a proper look at that. And the other thing I played with this week, croak, croak, is some upcycling of plastic bags. One of the things I keep seeing on Instagram is a place called Into Carry, INTOCARRY. And it's an Australian guy who talks about tutorials for turning your soft plastic waste or recycling into usable fabric and making bags out of it. And I was very curious about trying that. So, of course, I'm not going to pay $27 for the tutorial because I just want to try it out for myself. I grabbed a beetroot produce bag from the recycling and a bread bag and a bright yellow bag that had frozen fruit in it. And I cut them so they were flat, washed them, and then had a little try at melting them together into a fabric, which is why my ironing board is set up back there with the parchment paper. And I did wear a mask because I know it can create some toxic fumes. It came out okay. So I'll show you the recording of how I did that, and you can see how that turned out. I was pretty pleased with it, but I think I probably used a slightly too hot iron. It went a little bit wrinkly, and I'm not sure if I can avoid that happening with a slightly lower heat, maybe. But maybe there's more options for experimentation in future. For now, we are moving on. The third thing I'm going to be working on today in this video is something with my scrappy, ugly log cabin blocks that I've been building from my scrap bag. So you'll have seen in the last video me making a bunch of them. And then I made some more yesterday, and I totaled 19, which isn't a very strange number, but that's just how many I happen to end up with at the end of my sewing session. And I went to YouTube and I did a search on the Last Homely House channel to see if I could find where Kate had made this sewing bag. She called it a sewing pouch or something like that, out of a square of scrappy fabric, and I found it, so I will link it underneath this video as usual. So all it is, she just built up a crumb block fabric, and can't remember what she put on the back, but I'm going to do scrappy on both sides, and I'm also going to use some batting in the middle to make it nice and squishy. So you just have fabric batting, fabric, it's all finished off, like you've sewn it all together, turned it right side out, and she hand quilted hers, but I have an idea to tie my layers together with a bunch of random buttons because I have so many buttons, why not? And then you fold it into like an envelope bag. So at the current time, I have 19 blocks, which I have now trimmed down to 6 inches because I'm thinking 3 by 3 would make a good square, 3 blocks by 3 blocks. Once I've sewn them together, obviously I'm going to lose a bit, so it's not going to work out 18 inches square. I'm going to lose maybe a couple of inches with seam allowances, but that's okay, and we'll see how it turns out. I didn't have any plans to do any recording today, but I'm seeing a friend tomorrow and it's going to be her birthday soon, so I wanted to make her a card. And I found this really silly fabric, which looks like a newspaper. Puppy news. I am pug and you are not. Homeless, found a new home. Looking for new life. Unfortunately, a lot of the text has typos in it, so I'm questioning where this was printed and whether it was proofread before it was printed. But it's kind of cute in places. So what I've done is I've taken one of these log cabin blocks, the one that I over trimmed the other day, and it only had like 3 millimeters of this piece left on the side. And I have cut some things out, and I've used some double-sided sticky tape to put them down. She has a Chihuahua mix, so thought I'd make sure to include the Chihuahua. So the two ones I chose to use were Swiss Dog Watch, Alarming and Warning World of Drunkenness in the Greater Swiss Mountain Dogs Community. And this one says, Vegetarian Puppy, Revolution in Dog's Life. So I just pressed some buttons on my machine that I didn't want to do. I did consider doing some free motion quilting, but I'm not that confident in my free motion quilting skills. It's when I'm going to be giving something away. I have this piece of Peltex, which is a really stiff interfacing, that I'm going to back it with. So I'm just going to put a little bit more tape on here. This is the double-sided sticky tape I use. I have had it for a really long time. And at first I thought it was really good and it wasn't gumming up my needles. And then for some reason, it started gumming up my needles. So I don't use it a lot for sewing anymore. But we're going to go with it because it's either that or glue basting or a 505 spray, and I'm going for this. Just going to put a couple of strips of it there. And then I'll put my square of fabric on top. Once I have stitched this together, like so, I'm going to get a light piece of fabric so that I can write a message on it. And then I'll put it on the back so you won't see the stitching, like the bobbin thread. Let's go for a nice long stitch. I've got 3.5 mils stitch. My quilting foot, ow, and I just hit my head on my overhead light. And maybe I will just do some random straight lines. Let's start by trying to make sure that the edges of the white fabric are held down. I guess I could use something decorative, couldn't I? Hold on one second. I'm using purple thread because there's some purple in the background, and also she likes purple. So let's do that. Just center it a bit. I'm going to go fairly slow because this is really thick, but there's a nice sharp needle in there, so hopefully it will work out. Except it's not. Oh, damn. Well, that was a good start. I broke my needle. It went down and it hit the foot, and I don't know why, because this is a quilting foot and it should not have done that. Well, that wasn't a good start, was it? Sorry to alarm you with a broken needle. I think I'm just going to use a straight stitch. I don't know why it did that. I've never done that with a fancy stitch in my life. So that's very annoying. I think that might actually be enough. Let's move you back. Let's just move the machine back a bit. There we are. So it's more under the light. So what I'm going to do is cut my backing fabric, which is just this really, really bland one, to fit the back, and then I'll write on it. There's a good chance you can't see these lines, but I drew some faint lines on here with a friction pen. These Pilot friction pens are fantastic for marking on fabric because you can iron them off. And yes, if you take them out into sub-zero temperatures, sometimes they do say they can come back, but it's never been an issue. For me, anyway, just be warned. So the good thing is if you're going to mark fabric, mostly stick to fabric that's going to be hidden, like the back of something or the inside of something. Unfortunately, that's not an option for me right now because this is going to be seen. I also have a Pigma Micron pen. Sorry, the light is kind of funny because it's overhead and it's not like behind the camera. So this Pigma pen, I can't remember where I got it recently, but they are really good for writing on fabric. I used to use them all the time when I was making quilts a lot, and I would make a label for the quilt. So I would write on the quilt fabric and then apply it to the back of the quilt. So I'm just going to write something cheesy on here because the fabric is cheesy on the front. To a dear friend, hope you have a pawsome birthday. Ooh, groan. How am I going to finish that off? There we go. With much love and puppy type cuddles. So what I've done is I've heated my iron up. And I'm just going to get rid of those lines. That's what's so nice about those friction pens. And now I am going to 505 spray this. So I'm going to get away from the camera and everything and spray this. Oh, look at the steamy table. The steam from the iron went straight through and onto the table. It's all damp now. I'm just going to go and do this so I can keep my nose away from the spray. What I want to do now is do a wide zigzag around to finish off the edge. And I'm a little nervous about that now because I just broke that needle. So I'll put it onto zigzag. I want it fairly wide and a short one. So I'm going to go to a 0.5 length and 5 wide and hope for the best. The stitch pattern I was going to use was 7 wide, so maybe that's why, although it's never been an issue before. So I'm just going to hand crank this just to be sure it's not hitting any metal. Okay, I think it'll be all right. I'll start part way along the edge, so I'm not starting right at a rocky corner. Oh, what happened here? Oh, I don't believe it. I ran out of bobbin thread. I didn't think of that, did I? And I don't have another bobbin with green on like that. In fact, I forgot it was green on the bottom. I should have done this from the top. I'm not doing too well with this project, am I? Because I just realised I'm working from this back part. This is my purple, which I wanted to show on the front. And then the green bobbin thread on the back ran out. Damn and blast. The unpicking is done. It actually didn't take long at all because the seam ripper, that's the word, the seam ripper went into the zigzag stitch quite easily. I did it from the back so I didn't risk ripping my front fabric. I've also lengthened my zigzag because I think it was a bit too dense. All right, we're starting again. We've got purple on the top, we've got cream on the bottom. Look what I just found in the button stash. How perfect is that? A little paw button. So I'm going to sew it to the back of this card right here. I've just noticed the holes go the opposite way to the way I expected, so I'm just going to have to finagle that a bit. Just going through that layer of cotton on the back. So that was a few trials and tribulations there, wasn't it? Broken needle, some ripping out. Get rid of my initial tail there. Oops, without cutting fabric, Nicola. And we'll just give it a little haircut. You can see some of the purple was pulling through here to the back with my zigzag. I'm wondering if that's just because I was working so close to the edge there. I found this rather pretty paper in the stash, and I've trimmed it to an exact square because I want to make an envelope for this to go in, because I'm going to add in something else with this. I just need to figure out how this is going to work. I think I need to do a bit of pre-creasing just so that I can get things lined up right. I haven't done this for in a while. I'm going to go a little past the center like that, and then I will fold these in, make sure it's going to fit. Oh yeah. And then a little past the center on that side. And on this side. Make sure it's gonna fit. Yes. That's good. Alright, now I'm just gonna glue that with my glue stick. Problem with glue sticks is they get all glued up, don't they? So that is pretty much square. And then for the seal on the envelope, I'm going to use one of these Peter stickers. I've got one here that says "Dot Don't Shop." So I think I'm going to use that just to put a little seal on the envelope. You'll appreciate that. I'm not going to seal it up right now, because as I say, I've got one more thing I want to slip inside there. have my stack of squares. It's kind of nice having one extra because if there's one I particularly dislike, I can always leave it out. Make sure I've got my foot pedal in the right place. I'm not going to plan this out too obsessively, but I think maybe I might look at the ones I like best just for having as the outside of the bag. Nine. All right, these can be my outer ones, and I'm going to start joining them together. I'll do 3 rows of 3 and then join my rows together. Just going to have to make sure that if I have any matching fabrics on the outside that I avoid putting them side by side. So now I have 3 rows of 3. I'm going to do a little bit of a press on here. I had a seam really close, or seam allowance very close to my seam there, so I'm going to have to put my seam allowance the other way than the way I was going to do it, because it would get too bulky otherwise. I've ironed those 2 seam allowances in, so with this one I'll iron the seam allowances outwards, and then hopefully they will nest nicely together. Of course, there's going to be a lot of places where the seam allowances might clash in this. Lots of pinks and reds in this. I love it. Let's have a look. How's that work? Is that going to look good? Yeah, I think so. And now to do one of the long seams. There are places where my outer strip is insanely tiny because I trimmed so much on some of the blocks to get them to be 6 inches. I think I'm just going to take this one out because it has such a skinny piece of fabric there. It's just going to be a pain. So that's a reject, and then I'll just use what's left here. I'm ready to sew my layers together. I've got 16.5-inch piece of batting. I trimmed these pieces down to 16.5 just to get rid of any variation. And I have put them right side together with the batting on the bottom. I've got purple clips where I want to leave a gap for turning out. Now we're just going to sew all the way around. I'm thinking actually I should probably change to my walking foot for this because of the bulk of the batting. I think I'll lengthen my stitch length a bit to maybe 2.6 as well. Time to turn it right side out. Where my paintbrushes are so useful. pushing out the points. I love it when there's a crossover between crafts. This is my outside. I think I made the right choice to put those blocks on the outside and these on the inside. I'm going to turn off the camera. I'm just going to hand sew this gap shut because I don't want to top stitch. So all I'm going to do is hand sew that, and then we'll do the buttoning. This is where I am so far. All of the machine sewing is done. I hand sewed the gap closed, and this is going to be the inside of my pouch. So what I did is I looked at the outside and decided I wanted this to be my outer flap. So when it's rolled up or folded up, this is what you're going to see, this corner. So I put a clip on it to remind me. So I think what I'm going to start by doing is this centimetre tape measure twill tape is what I want to use for my cord to wrap it up with. So I'm going to start by attaching that. Not really sure how long I need it to be. So what's going to happen is these two corners are coming in and this one's coming up, and this will fold down, and it can either just fold like that, but what I think I'll probably do is do more of a roll or fold like that. So what I need to do is figure out this part. When Kate did hers, she had one end longer and one end shorter so that the long end could wrap and tie to the shorter end. Oh, I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take about this much. How much is this? It's about 20 inches doubled. And I'm going to cut that and attach the fold to the point of my square. And then if I want to trim it later, I can. The thread I'm going to use for attaching my buttons and my tie is this. It's called Dual Duty. It's Coats Dual Duty Heavy. It's 100% polyester, but it's a bit thicker than the regular sewing thread. I don't like sewing with it in my machine because it affects the tension that I've normally got set up, and then I have to start messing around with dials. But it'll be perfect for this purpose. Let's not put a knot in the thread yet. Right, so I want the tape to come off this corner. Also what Kate at the last homely house did, blah, blah, blah. Also what Kate did is she added a button on top of where she attached her tape. So what I may do, I'll show you the buttons I've got in a minute. I may attach a butterfly on top of that. You leave a tail there and I'll trim that off afterwards. Hope you can see that all right. See if I can up my brightness a bit. Well, there you go. The light's a bit brighter now. Just you're off to the side again. I sometimes try recording with the camera right in front of me, the phone on a little tripod right in front of me, and work around it, but that is so darn fiddly. And then I end up knocking it, or not being able to see what I'm doing properly. So before I break my thread, maybe I'll just audition a butterfly or two. See which one I like attached on top of that. So these butterfly buttons were some I was given by a friend, and they're very pretty. They're made of wood, and they're all random colours, which kind of goes with the random colours on my project, doesn't it? So I'm finding myself drawn rather to this purple one right here. So I think this one's going to end up right on here. So I won't cut my thread, I'll just go straight in to attaching the butterfly. Let's just take the thread back slightly more to the middle here. I did consider using embroidery thread for this, but the holes in the buttons are quite small. And we're going with good old sewing thread. Now that that's attached, the other thing I want to do is put more of the butterfly buttons on the outside. Now I do have to bear in mind that this is going to be folded, and I don't want the butterfly buttons being right where I'm going to fold it. So let's just do this again. And then maybe I could just pop a pin in. Isn't it funny how everyone always says pop a pin? Have you noticed that on people's videos? They always say pop a pin. They always say give it a good press too. Okay, so yeah, I think I'm going to have one here right in the middle. And I've got quite a few of those butterflies, but I don't need a huge amount, just to hold everything together nicely. It would be nice to have one in this purple area, wouldn't it? Right here. And one over here. I could have one here. And here, like halfway between there and the edge. And halfway between there and that edge. And I don't think I need one right here because there's already this butterfly here. So that would be 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be careful because I'll want them to be the right way up. So I'll put these 3 on while it's folded like this so that I know that they're going on the correct way up. And I'm going to go from the top. I've got a knot in my thread and I don't have my thimble down here, so I'm just going to have to be careful not to make a hole in my finger. The whole point is to tie the layers together. I'm going top to bottom. This knot here will get covered up by the button, so it'll be fine. And I'll just do a couple of goes through, maybe 3 passes. What's so nice about a project like this is that it basically feels free, because the scraps are ones I've had lying around for donkey's years, in a lot of cases. The buttons are ones I was given. And the batting, I think I was also given. It was a fairly cheapy looking polyester batting. And I'm not really sure where I got it from. I think it might have been a freebie from when I was working at Fabricland. So the only cost of this has been my time. And really, it's been so fun. I don't consider it as work, so there's no charge for my time. Okay, there's one in place. I'll pause you while I'm doing the rest of my buttons, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. Just to give you a closer up look of how it looks here. There's the tie at that end with the butterfly on. I've got butterflies here, 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 and here, and then also over towards this corner and this corner. And then this one at the bottom is upside down because obviously when I fold up that flap, it's going to be the right way up. I'm not sure how I'm going to hold my edges together while I sew them, but let's see how it works out. So this part comes up, this part comes in, and this part comes in. And then I have to sew along here and here. I think what I will do, obviously just do one at a time, and I will start at this end to make sure these match up well, and then head that way. And I will make sure just to catch the top folds of this seam together. I think I'll use my pink heavy thread again. Let's hope it works out. Just fasten off my thread here. I'm just going to do a ladder stitch. I don't want to do anything fancy. There is so much busyness in this project already, but I don't think I need to worry about making it any more busy. There's a very thick strip of fabric on that edge, which isn't the easiest to put my needle into. This side's easier. I think to stop it from popping open all the time, I'm going to put a clip in it. Where are my clips? There. And here is the finished item. These two seams were done. They weren't as challenging as I expected. So when you fold this part in, this is the part I wasn't sure about. Like, I was trying to do the math in my head and it wasn't working out. So I'll just tell you what size this worked out to be. When I trimmed my fabric and cut my batting, it was 16.5 inches. And I sewed it with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and turned it and then constructed the bag. So if you look at it like this with all the corners folded in, it's 11 inches square. But I'm not planning on using it necessarily like that. I'm going to, if I put something in here, it will probably end up being rolled or folded, probably like this. And then it will come down. And then you could do a couple of things with the ties. You could just wrap them around and tuck them in. Like that. Or you could have one shorter one and one longer one, and then wrap the longer one round and tie it to the shorter one. Or something else. But yeah, that was really enjoyable to make. I love it. Very wacky, very scrappy. But as I said, pretty much free. And here we are, nearly at the end of another video. I turned off the overhead light. Sometimes the LED light, it's lovely to work under in that I can see what I'm doing. Sometimes your eyes get tired and you're like, yeah, time for some natural light again. And it's lovely and sunny out there today, so I'm getting quite a bit of reflected sunlight through my window. So I think we have enough light for this last little bit. So that's 3 things made in the last few days. That's something I'm really happy about. I do love the process, but I also love the finish, as you may know. My upcycled plasticky bits came out rather well. I'm going to throw this in my shopping bag pile, and I will definitely use it for when I go to the supermarket and buy produce. It's a little weird, and not sure if I'm going to do any more of that, but it was a good experiment. It resulted in something usable, and I'm pleased with it. And then this little snap pouch, I'm not sure what I'm going to use that for. Not like I have coupons or anything to put in it, but again, it was fun to make. And the only thing that cost me was the snap, which is fractions of a penny. And my little sewing roll. Woohoo! Came out a good size. You could fit quite a lot in there. You could fit a small knitting or crochet project in it, or you could put your slow stitching accessories in it, maybe even put your slow stitching project in it. If you're making a scroll, that would definitely fit in there. Embroidery threads, needles, and so on. You could even put something up here on the flap, maybe a square of felt or something as a needle minder area. I'm glad I used the batting inside it. It made it nice and squishy. So yeah, another worthwhile experiment, all complete. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me today. I know I have got a pile of editing to do from all of the footage I have taken in the last couple of days, so not sure when this video will go up, but if you're watching this, I succeeded. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.